theaters in Bay Plaza. I just came out of watching the remake of Pet Sematary, the movie inspired by the novel by the great Stephen King. And I have to admit, um, and I'm doing this real quick mobile Strange Planet, horror and coffee actually, horror and coffee. And I'm bugging out because, wow, I remember seeing. I never read the book. But I remember seeing the original Pet Cemetery back when I was in college, and I remember how depressing it was. Like even back then, it was depressing to me. And after I got married and started having kids, that was one of the horror movies I kind of avoided because it takes on a different kind of form when you have kids and the idea of having children and losing them, which this story depicts strongly, and the whole thing about death, was and still is to this day, a very forbidden topic and difficult to swallow, and it's difficult for me to swallow. But this movie, this remake, it's a remake. Let's yeah. I actually it was easier for me to swallow than the 80s version. Like, I can't watch the 80s version, but I can see this one. There are a few different twists and turns that they did that are different from the original film adaptation of it, which I actually appreciated very much. There weren't really jump scares, but the same dark dread of death and burying and all that was there. And I thought it was really good as a result. So the story played itself out well. However, it's not a story that I would get on Blu-ray or anything. This is something I would probably just watch on Netflix or something maybe one day. I wouldn't recommend it for people that are for the faint of heart. There's some really dark twists here that are like broken. I mean, let's be real. And if I'll just put the phone right here, this movie has it's Stephen King. I mean, think about it. Stephen King always has this thing about him, there's a darkness there. I don't know how the guy writes all these books and these movies come out without this guy going completely mad, if I must be honest. But I didn't, feel it the way I did with, say, Hereditary. I didn't feel it the way I did with The Conjuring, I liked the dramatic effects, the visual effects, the cat was creepy, which was a great callback to the original cat from the original, I like the cat. The cat was crazy. It also also gave you a little bit of an insight of, of where when they come back from the dead, when they bury them in that forbidden burial ground, and then they come back there, I think, there was this creature growling in the distance, and people were like, what is that sound? And the old man in the movie said, oh, that's a loon. I'm like, a loon doesn't sound like that. And then he talked about some kind of creature that was a fabled story by the American tribes, Native American tribes at the time. It gets deep, and I guess the book gets even deeper. But it seems to be almost something demonic there, that these animals or people that come back to life those aren't them. It's their bodies, but something else is speaking through them, something malicious, something evil, and that's what's great about it. But by the end of the story, it kind of wraps itself around. It's like a wraparound, and what you see in the very beginning is kind of what you see at the very end. And you see the fate of this family, and it's almost doomed from the start. I'm like, ooh, you guys shouldn't have moved there to begin with. I understand the change of, scenery or whatever. It makes me want to just stay where I'm at. I don't want to move to any house in the middle of nowhere because, I'm going to give Pet Cemetery only 2 coffee cups. It doesn't mean that I hated it. It doesn't mean that it sucked. It just means that it was just worth one watch for me. The taste was just there, and it was tolerable. Again, the deep content of the horror of it is not something I swallow well, but at the same time, it was a strong, good story that I can appreciate. And if you're a Stephen King fan, you can definitely appreciate it. What are your thoughts about Pet Sematary as it came out this weekend? Talk to me. Comment below and share with me what you think about Stephen King's Pet Sematary, the remake. This is Rob Perez from Horror and Coffee. Take care.